Chapter 1. The Stork's Mishap. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, where the sun dipped low behind the hills and the scent of blooming lilacs filled the air, the day had begun like any other. The townsfolk bustled about their morning routines, unaware that a moment of chaos was about to unfold in the skies above. Just hours earlier, a stork named Serafina had been entrusted with a precious cargo. A newborn baby named Brad. As she soared through the cerulean expanse, her heart swelled with pride. But the sweet strains of a distant melody wafted through the air, pulling her attention away from her mission. Serafina had always been a diligent stork, known for her punctuality and grace. Yet today, the enchanting music, a lilting tune that seemed to dance on the wind, beckoned her closer. She tilted her head, her beak slightly open, entranced by the sound. It was a moment of distraction that would change everything. As she glided through the clouds, the world below transformed into a blur of greens and browns, the rooftops of Willow Creek peeking through the trees like a patchwork quilt. But just as she was about to adjust her course, a low rumble shattered her reverie. The roar of an airplane engine sliced through the tranquil morning, and Serafina's heart raced. She glanced up, her eyes widening in horror as the aircraft loomed closer, its metal frame glinting ominously in the sunlight. "Not now. Not like this," she squawked, panic surging through her feathers. In a desperate attempt to veer away, she flapped her wings with all her might, but the sudden movement sent the basket containing baby Brad tumbling from her grasp. Time seemed to slow as the basket spiraled downwards, and Serafina's heart sank. "No," she cried, her voice lost in the wind. The basket, with its delicate lining and the soft cooing of the baby within, plummeted toward the earth, heading straight for a quaint little house nestled at the end of Maple Street. Inside that house, the Johnson family was preparing for a cozy winter evening. The aroma of freshly baked bread wafted through the air, mingling with the faint scent of pine from the holiday decorations that adorned their living room. Mrs. Johnson, her hair tied back in a loose bun, was arranging the logs in the fireplace, her husband, Tom, fiddling with the matches, ready to ignite the flames. "Are you sure we should light it now?" Tom asked, glancing at the window where the last rays of sunlight were fading. "It's still a bit early, isn't it?" "Oh, come on, Tom. It's the perfect time for a fire," Mrs. Johnson replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Besides, it'll be nice to have a warm glow while we enjoy our dinner." Just as she struck the match, a loud thud echoed from above, followed by a soft, muffled cry. The couple exchanged bewildered glances, their hearts racing. "What was that?" Tom asked, his voice tinged with concern. Before Mrs. Johnson could respond, the basket crashed down the chimney, landing with a soft thump on the hearth. The fire was forgotten as they both stared, wide-eyed, at the strange object that had invaded their home. "What in the world?" Tom muttered, stepping closer. With a curious gurgle, baby Brad poked his head out from the basket, his big blue eyes sparkling with mischief. He was blissfully unaware of the chaos he had just caused, his tiny hands reaching out to grasp the edges of the basket. "Is that a baby?" Mrs. Johnson gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Tom, we have a baby in our living room." Before they could fully process the situation, Brad, in a fit of giggles, pulled himself up and began to crawl out of the basket. His little limbs moved with surprising agility, and in a moment of sheer playfulness, he knocked over a nearby decorative vase with a swift swipe of his hand. The vase shattered, sending shards flying across the floor. "Brad!" Mrs. Johnson exclaimed, her voice a mix of shock and delight. "Oh my goodness, what are you doing?" But Brad was undeterred. He crawled further into the room, his laughter ringing like music in the air. The couple watched in disbelief as he continued his playful destruction, knocking over a stack of magazines and sending a few cushions tumbling to the ground. Should we call someone?" Tom stammered, still trying to wrap his head around the bizarre turn of events. "Call someone? For a baby? What if he's lost?" Mrs. Johnson replied, her maternal instincts kicking in. We can't just leave him here. As if sensing their conversation, Brad turned his head, his eyes sparkling with mischief. He let out a delighted squeal, his tiny body wiggling with excitement. The couple couldn't help but chuckle at his antics, their initial shock slowly melting into amusement. "Okay, little guy," Tom said, kneeling down to Brad's level. "Let's see what we can do about you." But just as he reached out, Brad, with a burst of energy, crawled toward the fireplace, his laughter echoing through the room. "Mrs. Johnson," gasped, her heart racing as she rushed forward. "No, no, no. Not the fire." In a flurry of movement, she scooped him up just in time, cradling him against her chest. Brad looked up at her, his eyes wide and innocent, as if he had no idea of the trouble he had just caused. "Where did you come from, little one?" she whispered, her heart softening at the sight of his cherubic face. Meanwhile, Serafina, still flapping her wings in a panic, circled above the house, her heart heavy with guilt. She had never dropped a baby before, and the thought of what could have happened made her feathers ruffle with anxiety. She needed to make things right. As she descended, she caught sight of the Johnsons through the window, their faces a mixture of confusion and delight. "What have I done?" she murmured, her heart aching. "I must fix this." Inside, Mrs. Johnson was already trying to calm Brad, who was now reaching for the flickering flames, his tiny fingers stretching out in curiosity. "No, sweetie, that's hot," she exclaimed, pulling him closer. Tom, still in shock, finally found his voice. "We need to figure out who this baby belongs to. He can't just be here. Maybe he was left on our doorstep," Mrs. Johnson suggested, her brow furrowing. "But how did he end up in the chimney?" Just then, a soft tapping sound echoed from the window, drawing their attention. Serafina perched on the sill, her eyes wide and pleading. "Is that a stork?" Tom asked, incredulity etched on his face. Chapter 2. Growing up with a basket. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, where the sun painted the rooftops golden and the air was often sweetened by the scent of blooming lilacs, a peculiar boy named Brad grew up with an equally peculiar companion. A basket. It was no ordinary basket. It was the very vessel that had delivered him into the world, a whimsical artifact that had seen him through the tender years of childhood. In the previous chapter, we witnessed the chaotic arrival of Brad, dropped from the sky by a distracted stork, landing in a chimney just in time to disrupt a family's mundane evening. That moment of confusion had marked the beginning of a life filled with unexpected adventures, and the basket had been there for every one of them. As the years passed, Brad transformed from a bewildered infant into a curious child, his wide eyes always searching for the next adventure. The basket, once a mere cradle, became a sanctuary, a fortress, and a stage for his wild imagination. It was a place where he could retreat from the world, a vessel for dreams and secrets, and sometimes, a makeshift home. On a particularly sunny afternoon, Brad sat in his backyard, the basket nestled beside him like an old friend. The grass was a vibrant green, dotted with dandelions that danced in the gentle breeze. He ran his fingers over the woven surface, feeling the rough texture against his skin, and smiled at the memories it held. He could still recall the countless times he had used it as a spaceship, soaring through the galaxies of his imagination, or as a pirate ship, sailing the treacherous seas of his backyard. "Hey, Brad! What are you doing?" called out his best friend, Lily, her voice bright and cheerful as she bounded over, her pigtails bouncing with each step. "Just thinking about my basket," he replied, a hint of nostalgia creeping into his voice. "It's been with me forever." Lily plopped down beside him, her curiosity piqued. "You're not still carrying that thing around, are you? You're getting too big for it now." Brad chuckled, a sound that echoed the carefree spirit of their youth. "I know, but it feels like a part of me. It's like my own little world." Lily tilted her head, her brow furrowing slightly. "But don't you think it is time to let it go? You're not a baby anymore, Brad. You could donate it or something." The suggestion hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. Brad's heart sank at the thought. Letting go of the basket felt like letting go of a piece of himself. I don't know, Lily. It is special. Special or not, it is just a basket, she said, her tone gentle but firm. You need to grow up, Brad. You can't carry it around forever. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the yard, Brad felt a pang of uncertainty. He had always been the boy with the basket, the one who saw the world through a lens of whimsy and wonder. What would he be without it? The thought gnawed at him, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Lily was right. Maybe it was time to move on. That evening, as the sky turned to shades of pink and orange, Brad sat on his bed, the basket resting against the wall like a forgotten relic. He stared at it, lost in thought. The room was filled with the soft hum of crickets outside, their song a comforting backdrop to his swirling emotions. He could hear his parents chatting in the kitchen, the clinking of dishes punctuating their laughter. It was a normal evening, yet he felt a storm brewing inside him. What if I just donate it? He whispered to himself, the words tasting foreign on his tongue. What if I just let it go? The thought was both liberating and terrifying. He imagined the basket finding a new home, perhaps with a child who would fill it with dreams and laughter, just as he had. But the idea of parting with it felt like severing a lifeline to his childhood. The next day, Brad found himself wandering the aisles of the local supermarket, the basket cradled in his arms. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the air was thick with the scent of fresh produce and baked bread. He could hear the chatter of shoppers, the clatter of carts, and the occasional laughter of children. It was a world alive with energy, yet he felt like a ghost drifting through it. Are you really going to do this? Lily asked, her voice cutting through his thoughts as she joined him, her eyes wide with concern. I think so, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can. Just think about how happy it could make someone else, she encouraged, her hand resting on his shoulder. You've had your fun with it. It's time to let it go. Brad nodded, though doubt still lingered in his heart. He approached the donation bin, a large, colorful container that promised to give new life to forgotten items. The basket felt heavy in his arms, not just from its physical weight but from the emotional burden it carried. He hesitated, his fingers tightening around the woven handle. Do it, Brad, Lily urged softly, her eyes steady and reassuring. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, his heart racing. The world around him faded as he focused on the basket, the memories flooding back. Adventures in the backyard, secret hideouts, and dreams spun from the threads of imagination. With one final glance, he placed the basket inside the bin, the sound of it hitting the bottom echoing in his mind like a final goodbye. As he turned away, a sense of loss washed over him, mingling with the relief of having made a decision. I did it, he said, his voice trembling with a mix of triumph and sorrow. Lily smiled, though her eyes reflected a hint of sadness. You did. And it is okay to feel sad. It was a big part of your life. Brad nodded, the weight of her words settling over him like a warm blanket. I just hope it finds someone who needs it. Days turned into weeks, and life continued in Willow Creek. Brad found himself navigating the complexities of growing up, school, friendships, and the ever-looming expectations of adulthood. The absence of the basket lingered in the corners of his mind, a reminder of the carefree days of childhood that were slipping away like sand through his fingers. One afternoon, as he sat in his room, the walls adorned with posters of superheroes and dreamscapes, he received a message from Lily. Meet me at the park. It read, accompanied by a string of emojis that hinted at excitement. Curiosity piqued, Brad made his way to the park, the familiar path winding through the trees that whispered secrets in the breeze. When he arrived, he found Lily sitting on a swing, her feet barely grazing the ground as she swung back and forth, a smile lighting up her face. Chapter 3. The Supermarket Encounter. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the town as Brad made his way to the local supermarket. The memories of his childhood danced in his mind, a kaleidoscope of laughter and chaos, all centered around the basket that had been his steadfast companion. He could still hear the echoes of the family's startled gasps as he had tumbled out of the chimney, the basket cradling him like a protective cocoon. But now, the basket felt more like a relic of a past he was ready to leave behind. As he approached the supermarket, the familiar scent of fresh produce and baked bread wafted through the air, mingling with the distant sound of a cheerful jingle playing from the store's speakers. It was a comforting melody, one that reminded him of simpler times. He paused for a moment, taking in the vibrant colors of the storefront, the bright red and yellow signs promising sales and specials. It was a stark contrast to the muted tones of his thoughts, but he pushed those aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. Inside, the supermarket buzzed with life. Shoppers moved through the aisles, their carts clattering softly against the tiled floor, while children giggled and begged for candy. Brad felt a pang of nostalgia as he watched a mother gently scold her child for reaching too far into the candy display. It reminded him of his own mother, her warm laughter echoing in his ears as she playfully scolded him for his mischief. He made his way to the donation bin, the basket cradled in his arms like a fragile treasure. The clerk behind the counter, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, looked up as he approached. Her name tag read Maggie, and she had an air of familiarity that made Brad feel at ease. "Good afternoon. What can I help you with today?" she asked, her voice melodic and inviting. "I'd like to donate this basket," Brad said, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of uncertainty. "It's been with me for a long time, but I think it is time to let it go." Maggie took the basket from him, her fingers brushing against the worn fabric. She examined it closely, her brow furrowing slightly. "Oh dear, this is quite worn out. I'm afraid we can't accept it for donation. It's seen better days." Brad's heart sank. He had hoped that the basket could find a new purpose, a new life in the hands of someone who might cherish it as he had. "I understand," he said, forcing a smile. "I just thought, maybe someone else could use it." Maggie's expression softened as she looked into his eyes. "I can see you have a strong attachment to it. How about we find a way to make it useful for you instead? Why not fill it with some groceries? It could be a fun way to give it a new life." Brad's heart lifted at the suggestion. The idea of filling the basket with fresh produce and snacks ignited a spark of joy within him. "That sounds great," he replied, a genuine smile breaking across his face. "I'd love that." "Wonderful. Let's get started then," Maggie said, her enthusiasm infectious. She gestured toward the aisles, and Brad felt a renewed sense of purpose as he followed her lead. The first aisle was lined with colorful fruits and vegetables, their vibrant hues practically glowing under the fluorescent lights. Brad picked up a shiny red apple, its surface gleaming like a polished gem. He held it up to Maggie, who nodded approvingly. "A classic choice. Apples are always a hit." As he placed the apple into the basket, he felt a sense of connection to the past, as if each item he chose was a thread weaving together the tapestry of his life. He moved through the aisles, selecting ripe bananas, a bunch of grapes, and a few oranges, each piece of fruit a small celebration of the present moment. "Do you have any favorite snacks?" Maggie asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Brad paused, considering the question. "I used to love peanut butter crackers," he admitted, a hint of nostalgia creeping into his voice. "They remind me of my childhood." "Then let's find some," Maggie exclaimed, leading him to the snack aisle. As they walked, Brad felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense of camaraderie with this kind stranger who seemed to understand his attachment to the basket. They reached the snack aisle, and Brad's eyes widened at the array of options. He grabbed a box of peanut butter crackers, the familiar orange packaging igniting a flood of memories. "These are perfect," he said, holding them up triumphantly. "Excellent choice," Maggie replied, her smile widening. Anything else you'd like to add? Brad glanced around, his gaze landing on a shelf filled with colorful candy. A mischievous grin spread across his face as he picked up a bag of gummy bears. Just a little something sweet for the journey, he said, winking at Maggie. She chuckled, her laughter brightening the atmosphere around them. You've got a good sense of balance, my friend. A little sweetness never hurt anyone. As they continued to fill the basket, Brad felt lighter, as if the act of choosing each item was a way of letting go of the weight he had carried for so long. He was no longer just a boy with a basket. He was a man creating a new story, one filled with the promise of fresh beginnings. After a while, they made their way to the checkout line, the basket now brimming with colorful items. Brad felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him as he placed the basket on the counter. Thank you for your help, Maggie. I didn't expect to have such a good time today. Maggie rang up the items, her fingers deftly moving over the register. It was my pleasure. Sometimes, all it takes is a little creativity to breathe new life into old things. As she handed him the receipt, Brad felt a pang of reluctance. I guess this is goodbye to the basket, then, he said, his voice tinged with bittersweet emotion. Not quite, Maggie replied, her eyes twinkling. You're giving it a new purpose. It's not the end. It is just the beginning of a new chapter. Brad nodded, her words resonating deeply within him. He took a moment to appreciate the basket one last time, running his fingers over the frayed edges. It had been a vessel of his childhood, a symbol of comfort and safety. But now, it was also a reminder that he could create new memories, new experiences. As he stepped outside, the sun had dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the parking lot. The air was crisp, and the scent of autumn leaves filled his lungs. He took a deep breath, feeling invigorated by the day's events. Just as he was about to head home, he heard a voice calling out to him. Hey! Wait up! He turned to see a young woman rushing toward him. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. A chance meeting. The fluorescent lights of the supermarket flickered softly overhead, casting a sterile glow over the aisles filled with colorful packaging and the faint hum of chatter. Brad stood in the snack aisle, his fingers grazing the various options, a mix of nostalgia and hunger swirling within him. Just moments ago, he had felt a surge of hope as he wandered through the store, the basket now filled with groceries instead of memories. The clerk's suggestion had lifted his spirits, and he was determined to make the most of this unexpected outing. As he reached for a bag of spicy nacho chips, another hand brushed against his. Startled, he looked up to find a girl with bright, inquisitive eyes staring back at him. Her hair was a cascade of chestnut waves, and she wore a light blue hoodie that seemed to accentuate the warmth of her smile. Time slowed, the world around them fading into a soft blur, leaving only the two of them in sharp focus. Oh, I'm sorry, she said, her cheeks flushing slightly as she withdrew her hand. I didn't mean to. No, it is fine, Brad replied, his voice catching in his throat. He felt an inexplicable pull toward her, a magnetic connection that sent a thrill racing through him. I guess we both have good taste in snacks. She laughed, a sound like tinkling bells, and he couldn't help but smile back. I'm Paige, she said, extending her hand. And you are? Brad, he replied, shaking her hand. The moment their skin touched, a spark ignited between them, electric and undeniable. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring them together in this very moment, amidst the mundane backdrop of grocery shopping. Nice to meet you, Brad, she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. So, what's your snack of choice? The nacho chips. Definitely, he said, glancing at the bag in his hand. But I'm also a sucker for gummy bears. They remind me of childhood. Childhood snacks are the best, Paige agreed, her expression softening. I used to sneak gummy bears into the movies. My mom would never let me have them, but I always found a way. Brad chuckled, feeling a warmth spread through him. I can relate. My mom had a strict no candy rule, but I always managed to sneak some chocolate bars when she wasn't looking. Their laughter mingled, creating a bubble of intimacy that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The noise of the supermarket faded into the background, and for a moment, it was just the two of them, lost in their shared memories. "Do you come here often?" Paige asked, her tone playful yet curious. "Not really," Brad admitted, glancing at the basket he had filled with groceries. "I usually just grab takeout. But today felt different. I wanted to do something normal, I guess." "Normal is overrated," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Sometimes you just have to embrace the chaos." Brad nodded, captivated by her energy. "I think I'm starting to realize that." As they stood there, the air thick with unspoken words, Brad felt a rush of courage. "Can I ask you something?" he ventured, his heart racing. "What do you think about chance encounters like this one?" Paige's eyes widened slightly, and she took a step closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I think they can change everything. You never know who you might meet or what might happen." "Exactly," he said, emboldened by her response. "It's like the universe is giving you a little nudge, saying, hey, pay attention." She smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "So, what do you think the universe is trying to tell us right now?" Brad's breath caught in his throat as he felt the weight of her gaze. "Maybe it is telling us to take a chance." In that moment, the world around them faded completely. The sounds of the supermarket, the chatter of shoppers, the clattering of carts. All of it vanished, leaving only the two of them suspended in time. Brad could feel the heat radiating from her, the magnetic pull drawing him closer. He hesitated for just a heartbeat, then leaned in, his heart pounding like a drum. Paige met him halfway, her lips brushing against his in a tentative kiss that ignited a fire within him. It was soft and sweet, a promise of something more, and as they pulled away, both of them were breathless, their cheeks flushed with a mix of surprise and exhilaration. "Wow," she breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "That was unexpected." "Yeah," Brad replied, still reeling from the intensity of the moment. "But in a good way, right?" "Definitely," she said, a smile breaking across her face. "I didn't think I'd meet someone like you today." "Someone like me?" he asked, intrigued. "Someone who makes grocery shopping feel like an adventure," she replied, her laughter bubbling up again. "I mean, who knew nacho chips could lead to a kiss?" Brad chuckled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I guess we should thank the chips then. Or the universe," she said, her tone playful yet sincere. "Either way, I'm glad we bumped into each other." As they stood there, the initial thrill of their connection began to settle into something deeper. Brad felt a flutter of hope in his chest, a sense that this chance meeting could lead to something meaningful. But beneath that hope lay a flicker of uncertainty. What if this was just a fleeting moment, a spark that would fizzle out as quickly as it ignited? "Do you want to grab a coffee or something?" he asked, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside him. "I mean, if you're not busy." Paige's eyes lit up, and she nodded eagerly. "I'd love that. There's a little cafe just down the street. They have the best lattes." "Perfect," Brad said, his heart racing at the thought of spending more time with her. "Let me just finish up here." As he turned back to the shelves, he felt a rush of exhilaration. This was more than just a chance meeting. It was the beginning of something new, something exciting. He quickly grabbed a few more snacks, his mind racing with possibilities. "Brad." Paige's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to find her watching him with an expression that was both curious and hopeful. "Yeah. Can I ask you something?" she said, her tone shifting slightly. "What's your story? I mean, what brings you here today?" Brad hesitated, the weight of her question settling heavily on his shoulders. He had spent so long hiding behind the walls he had built, afraid to let anyone in. But something about Paige made him want to open up, to share the parts of himself he usually kept hidden. "I guess I'm just trying to figure things out, he admitted. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. Celebrating Dreams. As the fluorescent lights of the supermarket flickered overhead, Brad and Paige stood in the snack aisle, their fingers still tingling from the brief touch that had ignited something electric between them. The world around them faded into a blur, the mundane sounds of carts rolling and distant chatter replaced by the soft thrum of their shared heartbeat. Just moments ago, they had shared a kiss that felt like the first spark of a fire, one that promised warmth and light in the chilly air of uncertainty. But before they could fully process the magic of the moment, a burst of laughter erupted from the energy drink aisle nearby, pulling their attention away. They turned to see a girl with wild curls and a bright smile, her eyes sparkling with an exuberance that was hard to ignore. "Caitlin," she squealed, holding up a can of energy drink emblazoned with her own face. "Can you believe it? I'm on the bottle." Brad and Paige exchanged a glance, curiosity piqued. They stepped closer, drawn by the infectious joy radiating from Caitlin. The girl was practically bouncing on her toes, her excitement palpable. "Wait, what?" Brad asked, his brow furrowing in disbelief. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." Caitlin beamed, her cheeks flushed with exhilaration. "I've been dreaming about this since I was a kid. I entered this contest last summer, and they picked me. Look." She turned the can around, showcasing her face in a vibrant, cartoonish style, surrounded by lightning bolts and slogans like "Unleash Your Energy." Paige's eyes widened, and she clapped her hands together. "That's amazing. You must be so proud." "I am," Caitlin exclaimed, her voice rising with each word. "I can't believe it is actually happening. I mean, I've always wanted to be a part of something big, and now I am. This is my moment." Brad felt a swell of admiration for Caitlin. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and he couldn't help but smile. "That's incredible. We should celebrate." "Absolutely." Paige chimed in, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "What do you want to do?" Caitlin thought for a moment, her brow furrowing in concentration. "We should jump. Like, right here. It's a celebration, right?" Without waiting for a response, Caitlin grabbed both of their hands and pulled them into the aisle. The three of them stood in a circle, and Caitlin counted down. 1, 2, 3. Jump. They leapt into the air, laughter spilling from their lips as they landed with a thud, the sound echoing through the aisle. The moment felt surreal, a snapshot of pure joy that seemed to stretch time. For a brief second, they were untethered from reality, floating in a world where dreams came true. "Again!" Caitlin shouted, her voice ringing with delight. They jumped again, and again, until their laughter drew the attention of other shoppers, who paused to watch the trio celebrating in the middle of the supermarket. Okay, Brad said, breathless from laughter. "We should probably stop before we get kicked out." "Yeah, but this is the best day ever," Caitlin said, her eyes shining. "I can't believe I'm actually here with you guys. It feels like a dream." Paige nodded, her expression softening. "It really does. I mean, who knew a trip to the supermarket could turn into this?" Brad felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense of belonging that he hadn't realized he was missing. "You know, Caitlin, this is just the beginning for you. If you can make this dream come true, what else can you achieve?" Caitlin's smile faltered for a moment, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. "I hope so. I've always wanted to be more than just a girl in a small town. I want to inspire people, you know. But sometimes, I wonder if I'm just chasing shadows." "Don't think like that," Paige said gently, her voice steady. "You're already inspiring us. Look at how far you've come." Caitlin's eyes brightened again, and she nodded, though a hint of doubt lingered in her gaze. "Thanks, guys. I really needed to hear that." Brad felt a surge of protectiveness for Caitlin, a desire to shield her from the doubts that threatened to creep in. "You're going to do great things, Caitlin. I can feel it." "Yeah," Paige added, her enthusiasm unwavering. "And we'll be here to cheer you on." Caitlin's laughter rang out again, and they all shared a moment of camaraderie, a bond forged in the fires of shared dreams and aspirations. The energy in the aisle shifted, a palpable sense of hope weaving through their laughter. As they continued to chat, Brad found himself stealing glances at Paige. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and he felt a warmth blooming in his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was happening between them, something that went beyond the thrill of a first kiss. "Hey, Caitlin," Brad said, his voice steady. "What's next for you? Any other dreams you're chasing?" Caitlin's expression turned thoughtful, her fingers tracing the edge of the energy drink can. "Well, I've always wanted to travel. I want to see the world, meet new people, and maybe even start my own brand someday. But I guess I'm just scared of what comes next." "Scared?" Paige echoed, tilting her head. "Why?" "Because what if I fail?" Caitlin admitted, her voice dropping to a whisper. "What if this is the peak of my life, and everything else is just downhill from here?" Brad felt a pang of empathy for her. He understood that fear all too well. The fear of reaching for something only to have it slip through your fingers. You know, failure isn't the end. It's just a part of the journey. Every setback can lead to something greater. Caitlin looked at him, her eyes searching his face for sincerity. "You really think so?" "I do," he replied, his voice firm. "You've already accomplished something incredible. Just keep pushing forward. You never know what's waiting for you around the corner." Paige nodded in agreement. "And we'll be right here, cheering you on every step of the way." Caitlin's smile returned, brighter than before. "You guys are the best. I can't believe I met you today. This is the kind of stuff I'll remember forever." Brad felt a swell of warmth at her words, a sense of connection that transcended the ordinary. In that moment, he realized that they were all searching for something. Dreams, validation, a sense of belonging. And perhaps, in each other, they had found a piece of that puzzle. As they continued to chat and laugh, the atmosphere around them shifted. The sounds of the supermarket faded into the background. Chapter 6. New friendships. The fluorescent lights of the supermarket flickered overhead, casting a warm glow over the trio as they stood in the snack aisle, still buzzing from the unexpected kiss that had sparked between Brad and Paige. Caitlin, her cheeks flushed with excitement, clutched a bottle of energy drink adorned with her own face, a surreal emblem of her dreams come true. The air was thick with the scent of popcorn and freshly baked bread, mingling with the sweet aroma of candy that wafted from the nearby aisle. "Okay, so let's start over," Brad said, his voice steadying as he took a breath, trying to shake off the whirlwind of emotions. "I'm Brad. I guess you already know that." He glanced at Paige, who was still smiling shyly, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. "I'm Paige," she said, her voice light and melodic, like a gentle breeze. "And I'm really glad we bumped into each other. I mean, literally." Caitlin laughed, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "And I'm Caitlin, the girl whose face is on a bottle. Can you believe it?" She held the bottle up triumphantly, as if it were a trophy. "Not at all," Brad replied, grinning. "That's amazing. I've never met a celebrity before." Caitlin rolled her eyes playfully. "Oh, please. I'm not a celebrity. Just a girl who got lucky." "Lucky? You're a walking advertisement." Paige chimed in, her enthusiasm infectious. "That's incredible. I can't even imagine how it feels." Caitlin's expression softened, a hint of vulnerability creeping into her voice. "It's surreal, honestly. I've dreamed about this since I was a kid, but now that it is real, it feels different. Like, what do I do next?" Brad nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I get that. Sometimes, when you finally reach a goal, it is like the finish line just leads to another race." "Exactly," Caitlin exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. "It's like, now I have to figure out how to keep this momentum going. I want to do something big, something that matters." Paige leaned against the shelf, her fingers tracing the edge of a cereal box. What if we all did something big together? Like an adventure. I mean, we've just met, but I feel like we could be a team. Brad's heart raced at the thought. The idea of embarking on an adventure with these two felt exhilarating. I'm in. What do you have in mind? Caitlin's face brightened. How about a road trip? We could hit the beach, explore some cool spots, and just live a little. Paige's eyes sparkled with excitement. I love that idea. We could make a playlist for the drive, stop at roadside diners, and take a million pictures. Brad felt a rush of warmth at their enthusiasm. Count me in. I've always wanted to go on a road trip, but I've never had the chance. Then it is settled, Caitlin declared, her voice ringing with determination. We'll plan it out. But first, let's finish shopping. I need snacks for the journey. As they moved through the aisles, the atmosphere was electric with laughter and shared stories. Brad found himself drawn to Paige's infectious laughter, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. Caitlin, with her bold personality, was a whirlwind of energy, her excitement spilling over as she picked up various snacks and tossed them into their cart. Okay, what's your go-to road trip snack? Caitlin asked, her hands on her hips, surveying the options before them. Definitely gummy bears, Brad said without hesitation. They're the perfect mix of chewy and sweet. Gummy bears it is, Caitlin declared, grabbing a bag and tossing it into the cart. What about you, Paige? Paige bit her lip, her brow furrowing in thought. I think I'd go for trail mix. It's healthy, and it gives you energy for the drive. Smart choice. Caitlin nodded approvingly. We need to balance out all the junk food. As they continued shopping, Brad felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in a long time. The laughter they shared echoed through the aisles, drawing curious glances from other shoppers. He could hardly believe how quickly they had formed a bond, each moment weaving them closer together. Okay, let's take a break, Caitlin suggested, leading them to the small cafe area at the front of the store. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods enveloped them, making Brad's stomach rumble. They settled at a table, their cart piled high with snacks. Caitlin pulled out her phone, scrolling through her social media feed. I can't believe how many people are congratulating me on the drink. It's overwhelming. Do you think it'll change your life? Brad asked, genuinely curious. Caitlin paused, her expression thoughtful. I hope so. I want to inspire others, you know. Show them that dreams can come true, no matter how crazy they seem. Paige leaned forward, her eyes wide with admiration. That's such a beautiful goal, Caitlin. I think you're already doing it. Brad felt a swell of pride for Caitlin, the way her dreams were unfolding before her. You're going to do amazing things, Caitlin. I can feel it. Caitlin's cheeks flushed, and she smiled shyly. Thanks, guys. That means a lot. As they sipped their drinks, the conversation flowed effortlessly, revealing layers of their personalities. Brad learned that Paige had a passion for photography, capturing the beauty of everyday moments. Caitlin shared her love for sports, her competitive spirit shining through as she recounted her experiences on the track team. I've always wanted to try skydiving, Brad admitted, surprising himself with the confession. It's been on my bucket list forever. Skydiving. That's insane. Caitlin exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. We should totally do that on our road trip. Are you serious? Brad asked, a mix of thrill and apprehension coursing through him. Why not? It'll be an adventure. Caitlin insisted, her enthusiasm infectious. Paige laughed, shaking her head. You two are crazy. But I'm in. Let's make it a trip to remember. As they finished their drinks, Brad felt a sense of camaraderie that was both exhilarating and terrifying. He had never been one to take risks, but something about being with Paige and Caitlin made him want to step outside his comfort zone. Okay, so when do we leave? Caitlin asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Let's plan for next weekend, Paige suggested. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. Dinner plans. The fluorescent lights of the supermarket flickered above as Brad, Paige, and Caitlin made their way to the checkout line, their shopping cart brimming with an eclectic mix of groceries. The air was thick with the scent of fresh produce and baked goods, a comforting aroma that mingled with the lingering excitement of their spontaneous adventure. Just moments ago, they had been strangers, but now, laughter echoed between them like a familiar melody, binding them together in a way that felt almost magical. As they approached the register, Brad glanced at the girls, his heart still racing from the unexpected kiss he had shared with Paige. It was a moment that felt suspended in time, a spark igniting something deep within him. He couldn't help but steal glances at her, her auburn hair catching the light and framing her face in a halo that made her look almost ethereal. Caitlin, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of energy, her excitement palpable as she recounted the story of her face on the energy drink bottle, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Okay, so what's the plan for dinner?" Caitlin asked, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm as they unloaded their groceries onto the conveyor belt. "We have so much food. We could make anything." "I'm definitely in the mood for something comforting," Brad replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "Maybe pasta. It's easy to make, and we can add whatever we want." "Pasta sounds amazing," Paige chimed in, her cheeks flushing slightly as she caught Brad's gaze. "We could do a creamy Alfredo or a spicy arrabbiata. What do you think?" Caitlin nodded vigorously, her curls bouncing with each movement. "I love arrabbiata. It's got that perfect kick. Plus, we can throw in some veggies for color and flavor." As they discussed their dinner options, the cart filled with ingredients. Pasta, tomatoes, garlic, and a medley of fresh vegetables. The mundane act of grocery shopping transformed into a shared adventure, each item they selected becoming a part of their growing bond. Brad felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense of belonging that he hadn't realized he was missing. Once they finished at the register, they stepped outside into the cool evening air. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the parking lot, and the world felt alive with possibilities. Brad took a deep breath, the crispness of the air invigorating him. "So, whose place are we cooking at?" he asked, glancing between the girls. "I can host," Caitlin exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. "My parents are out for the night, so we'll have the whole place to ourselves." "Perfect," Paige replied, her eyes lighting up. "I can help with the cooking. I love being in the kitchen." Brad felt a flutter of anticipation at the thought of spending more time with Paige. "I'll handle the pasta then. I make a mean sauce," he said, trying to sound confident, even as a hint of nervousness crept in. As they walked to Caitlin's house, the conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and playful banter. They shared stories about their favorite meals growing up, each tale revealing a little more about their lives. Caitlin spoke of her mother's famous lasagna, while Paige reminisced about her father's Sunday morning pancakes, fluffy and dripping with syrup. Brad shared his own memories of his grandmother's homemade spaghetti, the way she would twirl the noodles around her fork with a flourish, her laughter filling the kitchen. "Food really brings people together, doesn't it?" Caitlin mused, her voice thoughtful as they reached her front porch. "It's like a universal language." "Definitely," Brad agreed, feeling the weight of her words. He glanced at Paige, who was nodding in agreement, her expression softening. "It's not just about the food. It is about the memories we create around it." Caitlin opened the door, and they stepped inside, the warmth of the house enveloping them. The familiar scent of home. Vanilla candles and fresh linen welcomed them. Caitlin led the way to the kitchen, a spacious area with bright white cabinets and a large island in the center, perfect for their culinary endeavors. "All right, let's get started," Caitlin declared, her energy infectious as she began unpacking the groceries. "What do we need first?" "Let's start with the sauce," Brad suggested, moving to the stove. He turned on the burner, the sound of the flame igniting filling the air. "We'll need to sauté the garlic and onions first." Paige joined him at the counter, her hands deftly chopping vegetables. I can help with that, she said, her voice steady and focused. As she worked, Brad couldn't help but admire the way she moved, her concentration evident in the way her brow furrowed slightly. Caitlin busied herself with the pasta, filling a large pot with water and placing it on the stove. I'll get the water boiling, she said, her enthusiasm palpable. This is going to be so much fun. As they cooked, the kitchen filled with the sounds of sizzling and laughter, the air thick with the rich aroma of garlic and tomatoes. Brad felt a sense of ease wash over him, the tension from earlier melting away as he and Paige exchanged playful glances and shared small touches as they passed ingredients back and forth. Do you think we'll be able to eat all this? Caitlin joked, gesturing to the mountain of food they had prepared. I mean, I'm all for a food challenge, but this might be pushing it. Challenge accepted. Brad laughed, feeling a surge of camaraderie. But only if we can make a pact to finish every last bite. Deal. Caitlin said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. But if we fail, we have to do the dishes. Fair enough, Paige chimed in, her laughter ringing like music in the air. But I'm pretty sure we'll manage. As they settled into a rhythm, the atmosphere shifted subtly. Brad found himself stealing glances at Paige, the way her lips curled into a smile as she stirred the sauce, the way her laughter danced in the air. There was an undeniable chemistry between them, a tension that crackled just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to ignite. Hey, do you guys ever think about what you want to do after high school? Caitlin asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled over them. She leaned against the counter, her expression curious. I've thought about it a bit, Brad replied, his voice thoughtful. I'm not entirely sure yet. I love music, but I also enjoy writing. Maybe something that combines both. Sounds like a dream, Caitlin said, her eyes wide with admiration. You should totally go for it. Paige nodded, her gaze steady on Brad. You have a talent for storytelling. I can see you doing something amazing with it. Brad felt a rush of warmth at her words, a mixture of gratitude and something deeper that he couldn't quite place. Thanks. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. The grocery store clerk's wisdom. As the automatic doors of the supermarket slid open, a rush of cool air greeted Brad, Paige, and Caitlin, who stepped out into the warm embrace of the late afternoon sun. The trio had just shared an unforgettable evening filled with laughter, camaraderie, and the thrill of newfound friendship. Brad's heart still raced from the kiss he had shared with Paige, a moment that felt like a spark igniting a fire within him. Caitlin, still buzzing from the excitement of seeing her face on the energy drink bottles, had been the perfect catalyst for their connection. Can you believe we actually did that? Caitlin exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy as she clutched her shopping bag. I mean, jumping up and down in the middle of the store. I thought we'd get kicked out. Paige laughed, her voice light and melodic. It was worth it. You deserve to celebrate, Caitlin. Your face on a drink. That's like a dream come true. Brad smiled, feeling the warmth of their friendship wrap around him like a cozy blanket. The clerk's kindness had set the tone for their day, and he couldn't shake the feeling that it had been a turning point. As they walked toward the parking lot, he glanced back at the store, where the clerk stood at the entrance, a warm smile on her face, waving goodbye. Hey, do you think she's always that nice? Brad asked, his brow furrowing slightly. I mean, it is not every day you meet someone who just gets you. Paige nodded, her expression thoughtful. I think people like her are rare. It's like she has this gift for making others feel special. I wish I could be like that. Caitlin chimed in, maybe we can learn from her. Kindness is contagious, right? We should spread that vibe wherever we go. Brad felt a swell of admiration for his new friends. They were so full of life, so eager to embrace the world. It was a stark contrast to the loneliness he had often felt, even with the basket that had been his constant companion. He glanced down at the bag of groceries in his hands, a mix of snacks and ingredients for their dinner together. It felt like a symbol of their budding friendship, a tangible reminder of the joy they had found in each other. As they reached the parking lot, Brad's mind wandered back to the clerk. You know, I think she's right about filling the basket with groceries. It's like, it is not just about the basket anymore. It's about what we create together. Paige turned to him, her eyes wide with curiosity. What do you mean? I mean, the basket was a part of my past, something I held onto for comfort. But now, it feels like it is time to fill it with new memories, new experiences, he explained, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. Like tonight. We're making dinner together. That's something I'll always remember. Caitlin grinned, her enthusiasm infectious. And we can make it a tradition. Every week, we can try new recipes and fill that basket with laughter and good food. Brad chuckled, the idea igniting a spark of excitement in him. I love that. It'll be our little adventure. As they approached Brad's car, the air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers from nearby gardens, mingling with the faint aroma of fresh produce from their bags. The sun cast a golden hue over everything, making the moment feel almost magical. Okay, what's on the menu for tonight? Caitlin asked, her voice bubbling with anticipation. Paige rifled through her bag, pulling out a few ingredients. I brought some pasta and sauce. We could make a simple spaghetti dish. Perfect. I have some garlic bread at home, Brad replied, his heart swelling with a sense of belonging. And maybe we can whip up a salad too. Count me in for the salad. Caitlin exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. I can chop veggies like a pro. As they piled into Brad's car, the atmosphere was electric with excitement. The chatter flowed easily, each girl contributing ideas for their dinner, their voices blending into a harmonious symphony of friendship. But as they drove, Brad couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was brewing beneath the surface. The connection he felt with Paige was undeniable, yet there was a flicker of uncertainty in his chest. What if he messed things up? What if this was all just a fleeting moment of happiness? Hey, Brad. Paige's voice cut through his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. Are you okay? You seem a little lost in thought. He glanced at her, her brow furrowed with concern. Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about everything, I guess. Everything like what? Caitlin asked, her curiosity piqued. Brad hesitated, the weight of his thoughts pressing down on him. Just about how quickly things can change. One moment, I'm alone with my basket, and the next, I'm here with you too, feeling like I actually belong somewhere. Paige's expression softened, and she reached out to touch his arm. You do belong, Brad. We're all in this together now. You're not alone anymore. Her words wrapped around him like a warm embrace, easing the tension in his chest. He wanted to believe her, to trust that this was real and not just a fleeting moment. But the fear of losing it all lingered in the back of his mind. As they pulled into Brad's driveway, he took a deep breath, steeling himself for the evening ahead. The house loomed before them, familiar yet different, filled with the promise of laughter and friendship. Let's make this dinner unforgettable, he declared, trying to shake off the lingering doubts. The girls cheered, their excitement palpable as they hopped out of the car and rushed toward the door. Brad followed, a smile creeping onto his face. Inside, the kitchen was bright and inviting, sunlight streaming through the windows. The scent of fresh herbs from the small potted plants on the windowsill filled the air, mingling with the anticipation of what was to come. Okay, let's get cooking, Caitlin said, her energy infectious as she began unpacking the groceries. Brad and Paige exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. This was their moment, a chance to create something beautiful together. As they worked side by side, chopping vegetables and stirring pots, the kitchen filled with laughter and the sounds of sizzling pans. Caitlin's playful banter kept the mood light, while Brad and Paige exchanged glances that spoke volumes, the tension between them simmering just beneath the surface. Hey, do you think we should add a little spice to the sauce? Caitlin suggested, her eyes sparkling with mischief. I mean, it could use a little kick. Brad chuckled, glancing at Paige. What do you think? Are we feeling adventurous? Paige's smile widened, her cheeks flushing slightly. Why not? Chapter 9. Chapter 9. A night to remember. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the neighborhood as Brad stood at the threshold of his home, heart racing with anticipation. Just hours ago, he had shared a magical moment with Paige in the supermarket, their hands brushing against each other as they reached for the same snack. That fleeting touch had ignited something deep within him, a spark that had only intensified since their first kiss. Now, with the promise of a dinner gathering with Paige and Caitlin, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness bubbling in his chest. As he opened the door wider, he could already hear the sound of laughter spilling into the evening air. The girls had arrived early, and the kitchen was alive with the clattering of pots and pans, accompanied by the sweet aroma of spices and something savory simmering on the stove. "Brad, you're just in time," Caitlin called out, her voice bright and cheerful. She was standing at the counter, a wooden spoon in hand, her hair tied back in a messy bun. "We're making your favorite spaghetti." "Yeah, and I'm trying not to burn the garlic bread," Paige chimed in, her brow furrowed in concentration as she hovered over the oven. The sight of her, focused and determined, made Brad's heart flutter. "Need any help?" he offered, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. "Just don't set anything on fire, okay?" Caitlin teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Brad chuckled, moving to the counter where Caitlin was chopping vegetables. "I promise, I'll just be the taste tester." "Perfect. We need one of those," Caitlin replied, handing him a slice of bell pepper. "Here, try this. Is it too crunchy?" He took a bite, the crispness of the pepper bursting with flavor. "Nope, it is just right," he said, grinning. Paige turned from the oven, her expression softening as she caught his eye. "You know, I think we should have a cooking competition next time," she suggested, her playful tone making Brad's stomach flutter. "You versus Caitlin and me. Winner gets bragging rights." "Challenge accepted," Brad replied, his competitive spirit ignited. "But I warn you, I make a mean lasagna." "Lasagna? Oh, you're going down." Caitlin laughed, her eyes wide with mock horror. As they continued to cook, the atmosphere in the kitchen was filled with warmth and camaraderie. They shared stories of their childhood, each tale punctuated by laughter and the occasional mishap. Brad recounted the time he had tried to bake cookies for his mom's birthday and ended up with a gooey mess that had stuck to the pan. "Did you at least get a good picture for Instagram?" Paige asked, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Of course. I called it abstract art," he replied, throwing his hands up in mock seriousness. "Genius!" Caitlin exclaimed, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "You should consider a career in food photography." As the evening wore on, the kitchen became a whirlwind of activity. They danced around each other, passing ingredients and utensils, their laughter echoing off the walls. Brad found himself stealing glances at Paige, her hair falling in soft waves around her face, her laughter infectious. "Okay, who's ready to make the sauce?" Caitlin announced, her voice rising above the clatter of dishes. "I am," Paige said, her enthusiasm palpable. "But I need someone to help me with the spices." "Brad, you're on." Brad stepped forward, feeling a rush of excitement as he joined Paige at the stove. The two of them stood shoulder to shoulder, the warmth of the simmering pot radiating between them. "What do you think? A pinch of oregano or a dash of basil?" Paige asked, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Why not both?" Brad suggested, his heart racing as he leaned closer, their arms brushing against each other. "Bold choice," she replied, her eyes sparkling. "Let's do it." As they added the spices, the kitchen filled with a fragrant aroma that made Brad's mouth water. He glanced at Paige, who was focused intently on the pot, her lips pursed in concentration. "You know, I never thought cooking could be this much fun," he admitted, his voice low. Paige turned to him, her expression softening. "It's more fun when you're with friends," she said, her tone sincere. I'm really glad we're doing this together. Me too, Brad replied, his heart swelling with warmth. I feel like I've known you forever. Just then, Caitlin burst into the kitchen, her hands raised in triumph. I found the perfect recipe for dessert. Chocolate lava cake. Are you serious? Brad exclaimed, his eyes widening. That sounds amazing. Right. We have to make it. Caitlin said, her excitement contagious. Okay, but we need to focus on dinner first, Paige reminded them, a playful smile on her lips. Otherwise, we'll end up with a kitchen disaster. As they continued to cook, the laughter and chatter flowed freely, but beneath the surface, Brad felt a tension building. He couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was significant, that something was about to change. He caught Paige's eye again, and for a moment, the world around them faded away. Hey, can I ask you something? He said, his voice barely above a whisper. Sure, Paige replied, her expression curious. What do you think about us? He asked, his heart pounding in his chest. Paige paused, her eyes searching his. I think there's something special here, she said slowly, her voice steady. But I don't want to rush anything. I want it to be real. Brad felt a rush of relief mixed with excitement. I feel the same way, he admitted, his gaze locked on hers. I just didn't want to mess things up. You're not messing anything up, she reassured him, her smile warm and genuine. Just be yourself. Before he could respond, Caitlin interrupted, her voice filled with enthusiasm. Okay, dinner is almost ready. Who wants to set the table? I'll do it, Brad said, eager to shift the focus away from their conversation. He moved to the dining room, grabbing plates and utensils, but his mind was still racing. As they sat down to eat, the table was filled with steaming plates of spaghetti, garlic bread, and a fresh salad. They clinked their glasses together, a toast to friendship and the delicious meal before them. Cheers! Caitlin exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy. Cheers! Brad and Paige echoed, their gazes lingering on each other for just a moment longer than necessary. The meal was filled with laughter and playful banter, but Brad couldn't shake the feeling of anticipation that hung in the air. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. A bright future. The laughter from the kitchen still echoed in Brad's ears as she leaned against the doorframe, watching Paige and Caitlin clean up the remnants of their culinary adventure. The night had been a whirlwind of flour, spilled sauce, and shared dreams, each moment weaving them closer together. Just hours ago, they had been strangers in a supermarket aisle, and now they were friends bound by laughter and the promise of shared futures. Hey, Brad, pass me that sponge. Caitlin called, her voice bright and teasing. She was perched on a stool, her hair a wild halo of curls, still slightly damp from the splashes of water they had all endured during their cooking escapade. Here you go, Chef Caitlin, Brad replied, tossing the sponge with a playful flick of her wrist. It landed perfectly in Caitlin's outstretched hand, earning a round of applause from Paige, who was busy wiping down the counter. Impressive throw. Paige grinned, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Maybe we should add professional sponge tossers to our resumes. Brad chuckled, the warmth of camaraderie wrapping around her like a cozy blanket. I think we'd be better off sticking to cooking. Or at least trying to. As the last of the dishes were washed and dried, the trio gathered around the small dining table, remnants of their meal still lingering in the air. The aroma of garlic and herbs mixed with the sweet scent of the dessert they had baked. A chocolate lava cake that had risen to perfection. Can you believe we actually pulled this off? Caitlin said, her voice filled with awe. I mean, we didn't burn anything down. Yet, Brad added with a mock-serious tone, causing the girls to erupt into laughter once more. The atmosphere was electric, a blend of excitement and the kind of comfort that only comes from genuine friendship. They had shared stories, dreams, and even a few secrets, each revelation deepening their bond. Okay, let's make a pact, Paige said suddenly, her expression turning serious. We promise to support each other in our dreams, no matter what. Brad's heart swelled at the thought. I'm in. I mean, we've already started this journey together, right? Caitlin nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. I want to be there for both of you, whether it is cheering you on at a competition or helping you with a project. We're a team now. Team Bright Future, Brad suggested, her voice playful yet earnest. Team Bright Future. They echoed, raising their glasses of sparkling water in a toast. As they clinked their glasses together, Brad felt a surge of hope. The world outside her window was dark, but inside, the glow of their friendship illuminated everything. It was a feeling she hadn't anticipated when she had entered the supermarket that day, and it filled her with a sense of purpose. Speaking of dreams, Caitlin said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, what's everyone's big goal? You know, the one thing you want to achieve more than anything. Brad hesitated, her heart racing. She had always been the quiet one, the girl who blended into the background. But with Paige and Caitlin, she felt emboldened. I want to be a writer, she confessed, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves. I've always loved telling stories, but I've never had the courage to share them. Wow, that's amazing! Paige exclaimed, her eyes wide with admiration. You should totally do it. What's stopping you? Brad shrugged, a hint of vulnerability creeping into her voice. I guess I've always been afraid of what people would think. What if they don't like my stories? Caitlin leaned forward, her expression earnest. You'll never know unless you try. And besides, we'll be here to support you every step of the way. Right, Paige. Absolutely. Paige agreed, her enthusiasm infectious. We can even help you brainstorm ideas. I'm sure you have some incredible stories just waiting to be told. Brad felt a warmth spread through her chest, the fear that had held her back for so long beginning to dissipate. Thanks, guys. That means a lot. What about you, Caitlin? Paige asked, turning the spotlight onto her friend. What's your big dream? Caitlin's eyes sparkled with excitement. I want to be a professional athlete. I've been training for years, and I'm hoping to get a scholarship for track and field. It's my passion, and I want to inspire others to chase their dreams too. Wow, that's incredible, Brad said, genuinely impressed. You're going to be amazing. Caitlin beamed, her confidence radiating. Thanks. I just have to keep pushing myself and stay focused. It's a lot of hard work, but I'm ready for it. And you will be, Paige added, her voice filled with conviction. You've got this, Caitlin. The three friends shared a moment of silence, each lost in their thoughts, the weight of their dreams hanging in the air. Brad felt a sense of solidarity, a connection that transcended their individual aspirations. They were in this together, and that made all the difference. What about you, Paige? Caitlin prompted, nudging her gently. What's your dream? Paige took a deep breath, her expression shifting to one of determination. I want to be a filmmaker. I've always loved telling stories through visuals, and I want to create films that inspire people and make them feel something. Brad's heart raced at the thought. That's amazing. You have such a creative eye. I can totally see you doing that. Thanks, Paige said, her cheeks flushing with pride. It's a tough industry, but I'm willing to put in the work. I just need to find the right opportunities. You will, Caitlin assured her. We'll all find our paths. Together. As the night wore on, they shared more stories, laughter, and dreams, the bond between them growing stronger with each passing moment. The world outside faded away, leaving only the warmth of their friendship and the promise of a bright future ahead. But as they began to clean up, Brad couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beneath the surface. The excitement of their newfound friendship was palpable, but there was an undercurrent of tension that she couldn't quite place. Hey, can I ask you guys something? Brad said, her voice hesitant. Of course. Caitlin replied, her eyes wide with curiosity. What if one of us doesn't achieve our dreams? What if we fail? Brad's heart raced as she spoke, the fear spilling out before she could stop it. Paige's expression softened, and she reached across the table to take Brad's hand. Failure is part of the journey. It doesn't define us. What matters is that we keep trying and supporting each other, no matter what. Caitlin nodded vigorously. Exactly.